There is something about, because plenty of women would be like, oh, I'll do all the housework stuff or whatever,
right,
because they just don't want to work. And that's true.
right.
But they'll eventually not work for long enough where it's not gonna just be the exact same over and over.
Yeah.
So that's why too, in our whole conversation, like actually talking about what the problem is or what the fear really is, or, you know, like even a guy being like, I'm afraid I'm gonna be pulling the weight in the entire relationship or putting in more in the relationship than you are. You know, I'm saying some women might still be defensive, but you know a woman is more likely to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't want you to think that I'm not invested in this. I will definitely work on that. Like, how can I support you? Or there's certain things that you're missing or things like that. You know what I mean? It's easier. That helps guide the emotional to a beneficial place.
And but maybe we can get some help from the audience too. Maybe they can give ideas of what is it, you know.
Well, like you said, I think it's hard because a lot of people are 50-50. And so it's not probably going to be a lot of people in a situation like us. And
it's two questions. It's if you're a man that's a sole provider, what should your wife be doing with her time? If you're not, if you're in a 50-50 relationship, if you were to, or that's a good question, is if you were going to become the sole provider, what expectations would you have of your partner? Right?
Okay, I think that can be slightly dangerous.
Yeah.
Especially men who are like fantasizing about it and it's not realistic.
Well, for women too.
Because it sounds like they'll probably just want their wives to stay home and just turn into sexual beings, and that's all that they would need to do.
Okay, I don't think that's I mean, that's
I think a lot of guys would say that's
what they would want.
Yeah, just, you know,
I mean,
have her available at all times.
Yeah, that might be fun for a little while, but it's going to grow old real quick. Like, so.
Well, I think you have to actually say that because, like I said, having guys fantasize about something, you know, there are going to be people in the comments that are just talking about that.
But the question is for men and women too, right? Because the question is for women is like, if a man was going to take over the finances and work and relieve you from your job, you don't have to work anymore. What would you do for that? Like, what would it be worth to you? Like, or what would you then think that would be the appropriate thing to do? Because that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of is like,
well, I get what you're saying, you know? But I also think that people who aren't in it can't fully understand because there is something about, because plenty of women would be like, oh, I'll do all the housework stuff or whatever because they just don't want to work. And that's true.
Right.
But they'll eventually not work for long enough where it's not like gonna just be the exact same over and over.
Yeah, it's more like if you marry a wealthy man and he works and he has maid service and a cook and all the things, so there's no domestic work, then what do you do?
Well, I'm sure they'd say go to the gym so that they look nice and then do the things that we've already discussed that men would say.
But that's the real like thing we're trying to get to is like, what is the actual, because we talked about the roles.
But I don't think that any of them would say that they would read books and things like that. I really don't think that they would say that.
Yeah, I don't think so. But it's like, what does the supporting look like? That's the hard thing to answer.
And what we talked about not on camera was that, like, in our own situation, it seemed like you need me to need you more.
Yeah.
And you have said that before, and that's what I struggle with the most. Is like asking for help or, you know, being needy, because as women, that's just something that we have a hard time with a lot of the time is, you know, asking for help and appearing needy, like I talked about in the last episode. But it seemed like that is more so what you needed. I'm not saying it's the only thing, but it's probably the thing that you've been missing compared to the other things that you were talking about. Yeah,
I think so. I think that's true. But
because like the ending of the last episode, you just blew my mind being like, ask for a hug instead of give a hug. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like I would have never came to that on my own thinking.
Yeah.
Like even though you told me to think the opposite,
Right. Yeah. That
my mind would have never been like, ask for a hug instead of just giving a hug.
Yeah.
But so that's why, too, in our whole conversation, like actually talking about what the problem is or what the fear really is, or, you know, like even a guy being like, I'm afraid I'm going to be pulling the weight in the entire relationship or putting in more in the relationship than you are.
Right.
Like that's the fear. That's the real thing.
Right.
And people hide the fear in a lot of ways, like we talked about, by being defensive and being like, I do this, this, and this.
Right.
Because the fear behind that is really, I'm doing all these things and I feel like you're not doing enough. And I'm afraid that I'm going to be the one pulling this relationship forward for the rest of my life.
Yeah. 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 Which boils down to not feeling appreciated, because that's what women would say.
Right, but that's the
fear.
fear.
Yeah, exactly. That's the fear.
But
yeah, exactly.
when you talk about it as a fear, it also triggers the part in a woman that is emotional and nurturing and caring to dive into that more.
Yeah.
And that's where you were getting it wrong too, with the whole like, well, you have 8 hours a day. What are you doing? Because that's very like you on a coaching call.
I'm just trying to logically like lay it out so that it's understood as an argument. It's like, because at a very logical level, this is not the way to talk about it. If a man is working 8 hours a day and a woman is not, then she should be doing some, like if she didn't have to, you know, she would normally have to work those 8 hours. So she's given 8 hours. So some of that time should be going back to him in some way.
But the thing is, women also don't look like, and especially too, like if you are a man who's like, I'm going to provide, why are you even looking at it as, well, if you would be at work for 8 hours anyway? Like telling that to a woman would be like, I'd rather just go work 8 hours than if you're expecting me to work while not working. Does that make sense? Like I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But the fact that you're presenting it that way just makes a woman automatically want to go to, well, I'd rather just go to work because I don't even know what he's talking about.
Right. Yeah. I'm not trying to present it that way. I'm just trying to say like there's a logical.
And you also can't marry a woman and be like, I want you to stay home and take care of the house and take care of the kids, and then be like, oh, but you would have been at work for 8 hours. So what are you doing with your 8 hours? You know what I mean? Like that doesn't even, that's not a stay at home mom. Like that's a stay at, that's like a stay at home, but work in a different way. Like, and I get what you're trying to say. I'm not saying she shouldn't care about supporting her husband.
Investing in the relationship in that time, however that looks, I guess. Maybe that's the thing that we've been missing, is using those words, because that's what the truth is. Right. Like she should be investing in the relationship, however that looks. Right. That might look like cleaning up the house if you don't have enough income to pay for a maid. It might look like taking care of the kids.
Even if you have a maid, it still has to be clean. Like laundry still has to be done.
But
like,
it might look like different varying degrees of that. But it's like, what is the thing that needs to be, you know?
But if you're talking to women, you do have to say it in the right way, because
I know.
You're talking like you're talking to men.
I know, because I'm just trying to logically lay out the framework, because it's I still don't have it quite. I mean, we're getting closer to it, but yeah,
I understand, but you also have to understand that you have to do it in the right way for the right audience.
Yeah,
because we're not the same.
No.
And the thing that you want is more softness, more feminine qualities. So you will not get that by being like, did you clock in your 8 hours today? What were you doing? I saw you on the couch doing TikTok. You should have been reading a book on how to support me. Like, I get the idea behind it, but that is not going to garner feminine energy that you actually want.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But by being vulnerable and speaking about like the actual fear you have, like I'm afraid, because I feel like I've been putting in a lot to our relationship and investing a lot in our relationship. And it doesn't feel very equal. And I'm afraid that that is how it's always going to be, or it's going to get worse.
Right. Yeah.
Then, I'm saying some women might still be defensive, but a woman is more likely to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't want you to think that I'm not invested in this. I'll definitely work on that. Like, how can I support you? Or there's certain things that you're missing or things like that. You know what I mean? It's easier. That helps guide the emotional to a beneficial place.
And you know where this is coming from real quick before we because look, I've been in this situation in the past.
Right.
Where I'm like, not only are you not supporting me, you're actively sabotaging me. So why the fuck am I working for like 10, 12 hours a day and you're watching TV or whatever the hell you're doing and then making my job harder and giving me all kinds of shit instead of actually supporting me, right? Like creating more problems for me to deal with on top of it. So I'm like, look, if I'm working 10, 12 hours and then you should be like spending that time trying to support me, trying to figure out how you can make my life easier, not harder, not just thinking it's free. Like, I don't care if you watch some TV or whatever, have some time, relax, go to the spa, whatever you want to do, but just make sure that you're at least putting in the investment to make me feel like I'm appreciated and admired and like taking pressure and stress off of me that can be relieved so that I can function better to make everything better for everyone. That's right. That's where it comes from.
It's and like if you had just said that, no, but I'm saying
but
like,
you know what I'm saying? But does that make more sense now? Like putting it that way?
It always made sense in that way. And I hear what you're saying.
Right.
And I think it is important to acknowledge that there probably was some of that past in this whole conversation.
Yeah, because I've been in that situation for a long time, right?
Right, so, exactly. Yeah. But like, I think it's important to acknowledge that also, that fear of what you've already experienced might have exasperated this. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying there aren't things that I need to work on.
No.
But at the same time, sometimes these experiences from our past pour over into our future and our brain thinks you're in the same situation, but you're not.
No, and no, it's not to equate it. Like I said, you're wonderful. You do tons of stuff for me. Like I appreciate you 100%.
But I get exactly what you're saying. Your situation too, I feel like was very extreme though too. And that's why earlier when we did the other episode, I was like, I'm doing way more than most women are doing. And I'm still confused. So I'm genuinely trying to figure it out. But your instance was like almost the exact opposite. Like there wasn't, and that's also why you wanted it so bad, right? Is like they weren't putting in any sort of thoughtfulness.
It's just that I guess as a man, you want the woman you're with, right? And that's why I was saying from before, to be thinking in her head, while you're working at work or whatever, if you're going to the office, while she's sitting at home, isn't this nice? I don't have to go into the office. My husband's so great. What could I do for him today to show him that I'm so appreciative that I don't have to work and that I can just, be myself? Like maybe I'll put on some sexy lingerie or maybe I'll write him a nice little note or maybe I'll make him his favorite dinner or, you know what I mean? Because it's like, that's what you as a man is hoping that your wife is thinking, right? That's appreciative, right? That she's spending, like you're spending time, like when you're in the office and you're working, you're thinking, I'm doing this for my wife, for my family. And you're hoping that she's at home thinking, what can I do for him? You know what I mean? And if you feel like a man that's not the case, that's when you feel like there's something wrong, especially if it's, like I said, actively sabotaging, which,